Okay. Month 3, we gave you June and July with books, mostly Scott Galloway and C.S. Lewis with some honorable mentions from McLuhan and Postman and all that kind of stuff. What we are going to do now for your final month in August for summer reading to learn about tech and theology is get a little more serious. Okay, first, People of the Screen by John Dyer. This is a fantastic and inquisitive look into how the evangelical church went from being a book people to a screen people, and how digital Bibles and digital kind of like evangelism, that kind of stuff, digital discipleship, digital, like that whole ecosystem, how that's kind of an evangelical thing. This is one of the reasons why I'm so keen on pointing out that we are the reason why there is a problem with digital discipleship elsewhere affecting the church. Like when we get pissed off at Andrew Tate and Nick Fuentes and, people discipling people in the church, yeah, it's our fault. It is 100% our fault. We didn't know what we were doing when we started doing this, and that's why. And so this shows you how we got to accepting digital mediums for that, and it doesn't deal with the effects, but it definitely shows you how things got started. This is fantastic. John is also like an awesome guy. Talked to him a bunch of times on Twitter. Still not calling it X. And he's fantastic. He also has other books. You should totally check him out. But People of the Screen, really great. You should totally read that. Next one, Radical Technologies, the Design of Everyday Life by Adam Greenfield. I haven't read enough Adam Greenfield, but this was like shockingly prescient. He really deals with like how technology is affecting society, what it's doing, and again, through the lens of what it is on to what it does. He gets it, and like it was a great work. I buzzed through that. It's huge. It's almost the size of Understanding Media, and I buzzed through this because I couldn't put it down. So definitely check this out if you can find it. He's still writing stuff. Now on to some weird stuff. Human Forever by James Poulos. You cannot get this book unless you buy it with Bitcoin on Canonic, which is a wild thing to say as a guy who's recommending books. But yeah, you need to make a Canonic account, you need to get some Bitcoin, you need to put it in the wallet on the Canonic account, and then you need to buy this book, or you can find a used copy and stuff like that. But again, a pro-technology, but like I don't even know how to describe it, like an anti just accepting it how it is, instead accepting it for what it does. This is a really interesting erudite read, and the fact that you have to buy it with Bitcoin is just fantastic. So I highly recommend that process because it shows you how the internet works, how cryptocurrencies work, all that kind of stuff, and it is a good read, if not a bit cryptic and good. And finally, The Piece de Resistance, your reward for reading all the other books as you finish off your summer reading about tech and theology. You're going to read Ride Sally Ride by Douglas Wilson, a sex rules novel. This is a book about a guy who murders his new neighbor's adult robot because he gets kind of like conned into helping, and the robot tries to seduce him at the commands of the new neighbor who's really perverted and weird, that kind of stuff. And he's a Christian, so he doesn't. So he murders the sex bot, and it dives into the implications of what happens when we start letting this stuff happen in society. The church in this book eventually comes to a place where it votes to whether or not it's going to grant membership to these fake humans because they're getting more and more advanced, because they're considered the life partners of other people, and how bad theology of tech can unwind. It deals with politics and technology and the underlying assumptions of everything. And Douglas Wilson does a great job. It is one of the funniest books I've read, one of the scariest books I've read, and it does a fantastic job of, showing where this could lead. It hasn't like nailed all the points. It's definitely not prophetic, but it really hits the nail on the head. And you'll see me on Twitter and Substack and other places like doing a picture response of me reading this anytime there's any kind of like weird AI where it's clearly trying to replace a wife or a husband, or like anytime there's AI girlfriend drama, that's showing up online, stuff like that. You'll see me posting pictures of this. Every pastor should have read this, should be reading this, should have copies to give to anyone who comes into their church that is talking about like relationships with AI, even like platonic relationships with AI. This book deals with the lowest resolution of that problem so you can understand what that leads to, where that goes, the theological implications, all that kind of stuff. It is fantastic. I recommend it to everybody. I probably am doing that more than I should because people get annoyed, but Ride, Sally, Ride. You should definitely read this book. And that is 12 books. I think 12, we'll get them all here so we can show you in one big clip kind of what's going on. That is 12 books over the summer to get you to think about tech and theology differently, because right now you likely aren't. You're being spoon-fed kind of how to think about technology through a select number of approved influencers who don't ever allow kind of like competing thought into their circles, and they get real offended when you do. They block accounts that do that, and they treat anyone who has critical thought as kind of like an opponent. And we're not opponents. We are loyal critics. We want the church to be effective. We want the church to know what it's doing when it's talking about technology, know how to think about that, and to not just be kind of cornholed into like one way of thinking that might lead them to like false assumptions and bad practices that, you know, end up being heretical. And if you don't read books that no one's reading, then you're not going to know what everybody else doesn't know. Like you need to do something different in order to kind of have that balanced approach. And we see this in scriptures. We see the Bereans not only getting preached to and getting taught, but also testing that stuff via the scriptures, testing that stuff via wisdom, so that they can know that they're being taught truth and it's credited to them at righteousness. And no one is doing that in Christian tech circles right now. It's all just, this is just a tool. We can totally use tools. And that's just a flawed approach. There's another side to this, and it's not being considered duly. Very few of us are actually being not only just critical, but like meaningfully critical of the tech in a way that, you know, we're worried about the health of the church because no one is saying the very obvious downsides to some of this stuff. So there's your reading plan. That's 12 books for the summer, June, July, and August. Hope you guys have a good one.